You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WYPC.
WCYTV here on the Daily Signal.
Good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. It's good to be with you, and I've got a couple of big asks right out the top of the gate. Producer Nick, producer Daniel out there in your mystical ether, can you keep an eye for the news that President Trump signs the release for the Epstein file release bill this evening? It may be tonight, could be tomorrow. He has pledged to sign the documents because we went from this afternoon with the congressional circus, the absolute cacophony that is Congress right now. Turmoil has engulfed not just the House, but the Senate so fast that after the House passed the particular resolution to release the Epstein files in their entirety, overriding federal grand jury testimony requirements, I'm sure there's going to be oodles, canoodles, and toaster strudels of legal challenges that are brought forward about this. 427-1. That was earlier in the House today. Run it. That one who did not vote.
On this vote, the yeas are 427, the nays are 1. 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended, the bill is passed.
The one representative who did not vote in favor, who voted against releasing the Epstein files, is Representative Clay Higgins of Louisiana. And he essentially gave a procedural and more of a question about how much information still needs to be protected. He said he couldn't go along with those who might be unfairly targeted because their name might be CC'd or carbon copied in an email alongside something. That was his objection. And then in the middle of everyone on the media coming out with every theory under the sun for how long, well, did Trump let it pass the House so that the Epstein file thing would head over to the Senate and then take forever over there? This was Chris Matthews' take over on CNN earlier today.
I think it's awful that these people are obeying him. The Senate is going to do what it can to logjam this whole effort to get the truth out.
Yeah, this is huge news. The Senate Majority Leader John Thune.
Now, while Chris Matthews was saying, "Oh, the Senate's going to logjam," there's no chance that they're going to roll this right through. As Chris Matthews was speaking, as he was running his mouth with predictions, by the way, don't make predictions about something taking a long time in the House or Senate. It's a rule of mine. I don't like to say, oh yeah, the House and the Senate's going to take a really long time to do that, because you usually end up getting slapped with a wet fish over it. As Chris Matthews was planning the logjam from eternity, Chuckles Schumer shuffled out onto the Senate floor and submitted a resolution for unanimous consent to just pass the Epstein files as soon as the envelope showed up to the Senate. Here was Chuckles.
I ask unanimous consent that when the Senate receives H.R. 4405, the Epstein Files Transparency Act from the House, the Senate proceed to its immediate consideration, the bill be considered read 3 times and passed with no intervening action or debate, and the motion to reconsider be considered made and.
So there are all of these procedures and rules. We're going to talk about this with Representative Tim Burchett here in a little bit, where, okay, the bill has to come in and then we've got to read it 3 times and spin around 6 times and bring it around town and stick out your left knee, and then you got to pass go, and then we got to bring it back one more time for the parliamentarian. And Schumer stepped forward and said, I have a motion. I'd like to make a motion. He gets out there and he dances a little bit and then says, all right, unanimous consent. Are we all good? Are we all golden? And it appeared then that, yeah, the motion was, in fact, ready to go, unanimous consent.
An objection. Without objection, so ordered.
The Senate has now passed.
All right, and then he does his William Shatner thing like Hakeem Jeffries, where he talks for 3 days. So I would like to remind all of you out there very quickly, as you watch this Epstein situation, the House and the Senate freaking know how to pass bills. They know how to pass bills. That it doesn't take 3 to 8 months, 3 to 8 months, and the lobbyists come in. Again, I'm kind of cutting away from Representative Burchett from Tennessee in just a little bit here, but we don't have all these lobbying groups say, hold on, actually, we need to consider the Egyptian lobby and what they think, and actually, we need to look at how this will impact the flea from Costa Rica. No, they can come through and say, you know what, screw reading it 8 times, screw all of the amendments, we're passing the bill, there you go, to the president's desk. And the Senate, 100-0, went, yeah, why not? And now it heads to the president's desk. So that's why I ask our crew to keep an eye on that and flag me down with large waving armfuls if the president gets to signing it this evening. Now, the Democrats, in their big effort to make the Epstein the centerpiece of life after the shutdown, after, as producer Nick has been researching through all of the Clinton Foundation documents that were full of corruption that were then sent from the Department of Justice over to the Senate Judiciary Committee. Now, here we are with this major Epstein drama. They leaked 3 emails. So the House Oversight Committee said, you know what would be funny? How about 10, 20, 30,000 of the emails slapped out in public? And there we found some interesting things. Now, some of the interesting things that we found is that, for example, Epstein asked his brother amid a ranting session about Donald Trump if there was any pictures of Donald Trump giving oral service to this guy named Bubba. Maybe it's Bill Clinton, maybe it's this oil magnate. Epstein said consistently he despised Trump at that point and was essentially asking, do we have any dirt on this guy? There's also, very likely, I will make a prediction here, you're going to find something out about Donald Trump complaining about Stormy Daniels, the porn star that he stooped and then paid to not run around telling everyone about like the one night that they had amid the Ramada Inn curtains or whatever. That's probably what's likely to be there. But there were also things that the Democrats may not have expected. For example, there's more than just Donald Trump whose names have appeared in these particular emails. For example, Representative Plaskett, Stacey Plaskett of the U.S. Virgin Islands. Now, that's a non-voting member of Congress. You say, why does it matter if her name was in there? Well, gee, it just so happens that back in February of 2019, she was sitting in a particular committee that was questioning the Trump administration. And it so happens that Epstein was personally texting Plaskett back and forth, coaching her on questions so that she could go after Trump and his team the most efficiently. Here is, if you're watching the live stream, you can actually see in real time the House Oversight Committee and the Washington Post name a weirder collaboration in history. I'll wait. Essentially narrate the text that she's receiving on her phone. This is my favorite kind of investigative journalism, for the record.
Obama was president of the United States. And while we were once driving through a struggling neighborhood in Chicago, he commented that only black people could live that way.
So right now, it's February 27th, 2019 at 7:42 a.m. Yeehaw. And you can actually see the text from Stacey Plaskett to Epstein, keeping him updated on the proceedings. In other words, according to the video put together by the Washington Post and the Oversight Committee here, you didn't actually just have, Epstein sitting back watching C-SPAN and then emailing his representative as much as he could. No, he's coaching her through the question session.
Attorney-client privilege, yes, I will turn it over.
You as my friend.
Text from Jeffrey Epstein at 11 a.m., a couple hours later. Message, Cohen brought up Rona, keeper of the secrets. She's reading the text right now.
Mr. Meadows pointed out misled this committee even today in a written submission that contradicted your testimony. You have suggested.
She asks Rona, R-O-N-A, because, she has no idea what she's doing there in the Virgin Islands, sent someone who's barely literate to be in the position of representative.
You were going to review that. Are you going to review it in our campaign? Or were involved in the campaign as a.
She then says, hey, quick, I'm up next. Please tell me what Rona is. Is that like an acronym? Is that a disease? I don't know what's going on.
Representative as a spokesman, even in your words today, it was your.
He says that's his assistant, and that brings us to her asking the questions.
Your idea for the campaign dating back to 2011. Is that accurate? Yes or no?
Yes.
Mr. Weisenberg and other individuals, Ms. Rona. Who are those individuals? Are they with the Trump organization?
They are.
Are there other people that we should be meeting with?
So now Plaskett comes forward taking Epstein's advice. Again, Democrat representative and member of the committee, one of the ranking members of the committee at this time, I'm told. And here we have Cohen answering some particular questions, and she immediately starts going for the people that Epstein suggests. Now that's kind of scummy considering he already had child sex abuse convictions on his file. And so Republicans say, this is really awkward. This is really weird. We have to send the radio crew to the commercial. We are not done with this. We haven't even gotten to the Democrat call for sedition. We're going to get to it. A lot of news tonight. We're going to continue on the live stream. In the meantime, it's the Tony Kinnett Cast. Sorry, got to play by the FCC rules because we simulcast on radio. So this brings us to a motion to censure by the Republican from South Carolina, Representative Ralph Northam. Your Honor, I'd like to play the video.
Resolution 888, censoring and condemning Delegate Stacey Plaskett and removing her from the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence for conduct that reflects the discredibility on the House of Representatives for colluding with convicted felon and offender Jeffrey Epstein during a congressional hearing.
Now, by the way, not only did he command Plaskett to, ask certain questions, at one point she was chewing like she was eating something that, for example, my boss despises that I do when I'm on the air. And he was like, stop chewing. You look like a mule. And she stopped. I mean, talk about having somebody buy the belt loop, buy the car keys. My goodness. So then we get to the emotionalism. I love the emotionalism. If it were the Democrats, the proper move here is to shut up. You are getting what you think you want. Don't talk. She's a non-voting member from the Virgin Islands. Say, I don't know her, and then let it go. But they didn't do that. So first of all, you have to get Plaskett up there. She's got to preach and go, he was my constituent. So here we go.
At the beginning of that hearing, the ranking member, Jim Jordan, had the disrespect to Elijah Cummings, may he rest in peace and his name be a memory, after not allowing Mr. Jordan to shut the committee hearing down.
Now, it would be very sexist and inappropriate for me to say it's just like a woman to get up and immediately evade the matter at hand and start talking about something unrelated. Jim Jordan was mean to me, and also the late Representative Cummings, may he rest in peace. And you can tell she doesn't even care. She's just trying to evoke emotion. He got stepped on. That's so rude. These mean Republicans. Oh my gosh. So after she prattles on for 36 seconds about this unrelated thing,
from constituents about what was happening in that hearing. And I got a text from Jeffrey Epstein, who at the time was my constituent, who was not public knowledge at that time that he was under federal investigation, and who was sharing information with me.
Okay, producer Nick.
Why does he have your phone number?
Great question. Why does he have your phone number?
I don't have any phone numbers personally of delegates and cannot text them.
You're getting ahead of me in the best of ways. You're asking the right questions. Now, I have a little bit of a working theory as to where this particular phone number came from, but we'll get to Hakeem Jeffries here in a minute, because right now, it's time for Representative Catherine Clark. You say, who the heck is that? She's a Democrat from Massachusetts. I know, redundant. She's the minority whip. She gets out here and starts whining that Republicans are being partisan right now. It's supposed to be about stopping Epstein, and these Republicans they want to censure someone for working with Epstein. Oh my gosh. Here's Catherine Clark.
Victims of Jeffrey Epstein to have justice and transparency. And not minutes later, the gentleman from South Carolina is filing yet another partisan resolution.
That's right. Work those pearls like rosary beads.
I ask all of my colleagues to support this motion, to refer this to the Ethics Committee, and I yield back my time.
Okay, so she does a couple of things there. Number one, she talks as slowly as possible to stall, as though that will save Plaskett. No. Number two, the pearl clutching, I always enjoy. We're going to get to Jamie Raskin's pearl clutching here in a second. We are going to dig through this news piece by piece because it is worth hearing. You're not going to see this played clip for clip on network TV. They don't have the time. We're going to make time for it. That's right. We got a full-on show tonight. We got to bring the radio crew back from commercial. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Feels like I'm losing it.
Y'all, friends, countrymen, lend me your ears. Jamie Raskin, the one who just said that the Democrat Party is ready to accept Marjorie Taylor Greene with open arms. The same Jamie Raskin the honorable ranking member, Jamie Raskin, who preached the virtues of standing up for, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the wife-beating illegal immigrant with MS-13 tattooed on his knuckles. He stood in front of the House today and he said, "He who has not collaborated with a felon sexual abuser in order to question Donald Trump, let him cast the first stone." Jamie Raskin.
Well, they want to give them another headline, which is that they've arraigned a Democratic member for taking a phone call.
Two things. Number one, not for taking a phone call, for texting back and forth in a committee hearing. Not for taking a phone call. Read the memo, Jamie, before you get in front of the Congress. Number two, he says Republicans want another headline. Think about that for just a second. Put that one in your back pocket and hang on to it for a second.
From her constituent, Jeffrey Epstein, in the middle of a hearing. And of course, I don't think there's any rule here against taking phone calls in a hearing.
Now, that's true. There is no rule against taking a phone call in a hearing. None at all. However, if I'm, chilling out, let's say, God forbid, I run for Congress. Let's say even worse, God forbid, I get elected as Indiana's 6th congressional representative, and I'm sitting in Congress and they put me in a hearing. And all of a sudden, in this education hearing, I get a call from one of the numerous teachers in the public school system that has been arrested and has been convicted of doing something sexually inappropriate with a student. And I start taking advice and apparently direction from someone who has been charged and convicted of a particularly grievous, disgusting felony. Well, I think there'd be a little bit of an issue with that. Now, remember what I told you to keep in your back pocket? Republicans want another headline. Who is it that after the government shutdown finished, decided to make this the priority for all media coverage, every congressional statement, every congressional video? Who invited Marjorie Taylor Greene to the party over it? Who made the Epstein files the centerpiece of their entire communication focused post-shutdown, post-Clinton files, post the disaster with immigration and crime enforcement, etc.? Oh yeah, that would be the House and the Senate Democrats. Now, they've made the Epstein the forefront. Of course, there's going to be stuff related to Trump in the files. That's been very, very clear since the beginning. The question is how much is in there. But the question a lot of people haven't asked is what else is in the files? And whenever you play fast and loose and stupid with, oh, let's just get everything right out there right now today, collateral damage occurs. Collateral damage comes in all shapes and forms, and it absolutely is coming to bite Raskin and every other Democrat in the butt. Not least of which, by the way, include House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. Womp womp. James Comer, chair of the Oversight Committee, ladies and gentlemen.
Colleagues' coordination with Epstein. Another email shows Democrat fundraisers invited Epstein to an event or to meet privately with Hakeem Jeffries as part of their 2013 effort to win a majority. So Hakeem Jeffries' campaign solicited money from Jeffrey Epstein.
Now, hang on, you say 2013, that's nowhere near his 2019 arrest. Jeffrey Epstein had already been arrested and convicted of sexual crime in 2008. We're going to get out here and we're going to say, oh, well, Donald Trump back in the 90s, back in the early aughts, he knew when he hung around with Jeffrey Epstein. I would like to remind you that 2013 comes after 2008. It comes after 2009. It comes after his Florida convictions. Now, there have been people that have come out and pointed that this email appears to be from just a campaign staffer, a mass email sent out to everyone. Guys, usually those kinds of emails do not include, give me a call at my personal number in Washington if you're interested in this. I receive way too many. I got added to a group chat petition thing I didn't want this afternoon. I've been added to email lists all week. I get more PR emails in 15 minutes than books Supreme Court Jackson justices read. A bad example, admittedly. In this particular instance, I think that it's really not the move you want to go with here to make your House Minority Leader have to answer for, again, personal campaign offers, donation requests to, at the time, convicted Jeffrey Epstein. Now, this brings up Ro Khanna. Ro Khanna's been out there with Massey saying, I care. I care about you. I care about the victims. I care about anyone and anything that has worked with Jeffrey Epstein. This is very, very, very bad. I've looked through everything, Ro Khanna has said. Well, the reporter from Lindell TV, again, heck of a reporter that they've got out there in Washington. She gets more upfront questions than I've ever seen a reporter get. Very impressive stuff. She fires off a question to Ro Khanna this afternoon, and the man looks as awkward as Bambi in the second half of the movie.
Any comment on Hakeem Jeffrey's campaign soliciting money from Jeffrey Epstein himself back in 2013?
It's the first time hearing about it.
Wait a minute. The first time hearing about it, wouldn't you have had like internal party things that say, hey, I might in fact be somewhere in this. We've looked through all of our records. We think this is a serious thing. Just letting you know. This is the first that you've heard about it. Oh, hang on a second there, Skipper. You said that you personally cared. You were interested in anybody that took money or gave money or offered money being brought forward and brought to account, which should happen. Where did Epstein get his money? Where did the money go? Important questions that Americans do deserve an answer for. But regardless of how much Attorney General Pam Bondi botched the initial rollout and finishing up of the initial investigation of the Epstein files, which for the record, I am now in a position to say that I've seen enough. The number one reason that there's been so much botching of all of these is that too few people have actually read what they have to know what is and has not been released yet. Too much of it. Laziness like usual. But if you're going to get in front of the American people as Ro Khanna or Thomas Massie and say, I've read everything, and then you're surprised by stuff that comes out, my brother in Christ, it is you who read the files. No, it doesn't work like that. Now, this does bring us over to the worst news story of the day. There are 7 congressional Democrats who, some of which are veterans, some pretend to be veterans because they formerly work for an intelligence agency. That's not at all the same thing. That have come out to call for something that is truly, truly gross. I'll go ahead and run the clip. Here you go.
I'm Senator Alyssa Slotkin.
Senator Mark Kelly. Representative Chris DeLuzio.
Congresswoman Maggie Goodlander.
Representative Chrissy Houlihan.
Congressman Jason Crow. I was a captain in the United States Navy.
Former CIA officer.
Former Navy. Former paratrooper and Army Ranger.
Former intelligence officer.
Former Air Force.
We want to speak directly to members of the military
and the intelligence community
who take risks each day to keep Americans safe.
We know you are under enormous stress and pressure right now.
Americans trust their military.
But that trust is at risk. This administration is pitting our uniformed military
and intelligence community professionals
against American citizens.
I'm going to hold the phone right there, folks. Alyssa Slotkin, former CIA, saying this administration is pitting our intelligence agencies against American citizens. How freaking dare you? First of all, the Patriot Act in the early aughts made it perfectly clear that intelligence agencies interact directly from the left and the right against American citizens. Honey, sister, that's past. Okay, you don't get to stand there and say, oh, it's terrible. I will remind you, if I needed to remind you, that in the Biden administration, while groups like the Council on American-Islamic Relations, the Muslim Brotherhood, Antifa, all of the other various groups that were causing direct harm to the rest of the country, Black Lives Matter, for instance, burning down city blocks, no one was investigating them. The FBI had special task forces to do a couple of things. Number one, to illegally tap the phones of U.S. senators and track their locations, to go after Catholics, to go after parents that went to parental rights, little school board meetings, that federal troops and law enforcement were fired and dismissed dishonorably for not getting the COVID vaccine? You don't get to pull that one. Sorry, radio crew, we have to send you all over to commercial. We're going to continue on the live stream with the rest of this garbage video. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast.
Like us, you all swore an oath
to protect and defend this Constitution.
Right now, the threats to our Constitution aren't just coming from abroad,
but from right here at home. Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
For those who are listening and are not watching, at this point, it stops with kind of the lower chyron or the subtitles. And in big, bold text that appears to be Proxima Nova for you font nerds out there, it says, you can refuse illegal orders. That is coming from Senator Mark Kelly. While technically true, there's a big, big issue with releasing a video calling for what they are clearly calling for here.
The threats to our Constitution aren't just coming from abroad,
but from right here at home. Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
So now we're encouraging. Now wait a minute. Who determines whether the order is illegal or not? Do you, as a private, you as an E1 or an E2 out there, you have a clear understanding of what orders are legal and illegal in this country? Are you serious? I've worked with a lot of National Guardsmen in my life. I can tell you, how about no?
No one has to carry out orders that violate the law
or our Constitution.
We know this is hard and that it's a difficult time to be a public servant.
But whether you're serving in the CIA,
The Army or Navy,
The Air Force.
Your vigilance is critical.
Again, equating intelligence agencies with the military is wrong. I don't like it. The Central Intelligence Agency is important. There is a lot of value to what the CIA does. Equating it with our servicemen and women is wrong. That is wrong. It is wrong. I don't agree with that whatsoever. Neither do Americans.
and know that we have your back.
You have never had service members' backs, ever. Not once have you had service members' backs. Slotkin supported those in the military getting canned for not taking the COVID-19 vaccine. She does not have the backs of our military. She is a liar. I mean, she's a CIA spook, so there you go.
Because now, more than ever,
the American people need you.
We need you to stand up for our laws,
our Constitution,
and who we are as Americans. Don't give up.
Don't give up.
Don't give up.
Don't give up the ship.
Okay, so first of all, that's an incredibly dangerous thing to put out at any given time, saying you need to take your understanding of what constitutes a legal order or adheres to the U.S. Constitution into your own hands. No. No. Absolutely do not do that. First of all, if you are actually in the military, you are putting yourself in a very rough situation. So if you are in the military and the order seems wrong, consult a JAG outside of your command. Make a paper trail and be prepared to ride out the storm. Advice that's just don't obey orders you think are unconstitutional. That is stupid, terrible, awful advice. Politicians do not pay the price, by the way, if a service member guesses wrong on whether an order is illegal or not. Elisa Slotkin, if you say, well, I decided that it was illegal, she's not going to come running to you. No, absolutely not. Stupid. Also, by the way, a lot of people are pointing out that it's treasonous. U.S. Code, 18 U.S. Code 2384 does suggest this might involve seditious conspiracy, prohibiting those conspiring to overthrow, put down, destroy the U.S. government by force, to levy war against it, or to prevent the execution of any federal law by force. That's what a lot of this would incur. Section 2387, though, that's the real kicker here. This would involve activities affecting armed forces. We're going to have to swing to the radio crew and pick them up, and we'll just have to play everything on the rest of timing this evening as well as we can. Don't go anywhere. Lots more news to cover. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast. To summarize why it is a very, very, very not good thing to release the video that Democrats, again, claiming to be veterans, some of them veterans of intelligence agencies, not the same thing as those who are veterans of the United States military, saying, well, you need to disobey orders that you think are wrong. No. And in fact, very likely violates 18 U.S. Code Section 2387. Allow me to explain why. I'll throw that up on the screen here as well. This code states, A, whoever with intent to interfere with, that absolutely fits this video, impair or influence the loyalty, morale, or discipline of the military or naval forces of the United States and advises, counsels, urges, or in any manner causes or attempts to cause insubordination, disloyalty, mutiny, or refusal of duty by any member of the military or naval forces of the United States, or, this would be also where the video comes in, distributes or attempts to distribute any written or printed matter, videos technically do fall under that according to precedent, which advises, counsels, or urges insubordination and the above disloyalty, mutiny, or refusal of duty by any member, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 10 years or both, and shall be ineligible for employment by the United States or any department or agency thereof, including elected office, for the next 5 years following his or her conviction. You cannot do that. By the way, the oath is between the service member, their commanding officer, and the Constitution. It is the commanding officer which calls the service member to fulfill their oath. It is not some member of Congress. No. It is disgusting. So, moving on from that, that brings us to a quick piece of news and then over to some of the updates from the Hill. A federal court has now blocked in a 2-1 ruling Texas from using its 2025 congressional maps for the 2026 elections. So a 3-judge panel of the United States District Court for the Western District of Texas issued a 2-1 ruling blocking Texas' newly enacted 2025 congressional maps, according to the panel, finding that they likely constitute an illegal racial gerrymander that dilutes, whatever that means, Black and Hispanic voting power in violation of the Voting Rights Act. The court ordered Texas to revert to the 2021 congressional maps. So there are a lot of Democrats, and Gavin Newsom included, saying, oh, democracy's won, California has been allowed to stay, and Texas has been thrown down. That's not what happened. This federal panel of judges, first of all, they are ruling based on the current precedent of the Voting Rights Act, which the Supreme Court is about to throw down with extreme prejudice. So this is not going to matter here in a couple of days when the Supreme Court issues their ruling. Number two, the reason California is not mentioned is it is a Texas-specific lawsuit. So the judicial panel, while according to the Voting Rights Act, maybe Texas has kind of violated this. Again, it's really up to interpretation. It was a split decision. Not going to matter when the Supreme Court says, yeah, you can't use race as a measure of gerrymandering districts. You can't say, well, this is the Black part of the state. This is the Hispanic part of the state. Yeah, no. So moving on from that, I know that we don't necessarily have the, thematic music maybe ready to play here because we've gone a little bit out of order this evening. Well, we'll go ahead and pull it up anyway here. From our gorgeous nation's capital, I do want to take you away from the shenanigans to give you some of the updates about what's coming next. Because once the Epstein stuff is over, you got to go somewhere. So without further ado.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast with special guest Rob Bluey.
You've heard the Bluey theme. It's time to talk to Rob Bluey, president of the Daily Signal. Good to have you as always.
Thanks, Tony. It's good to see you today.
So I'm seeing a lot of coverage out of not Washington, D.C., but some of the crimes in Chicago, some of the crime in Charlotte, some of the crime in a lot of sanctuary cities that I'm told were perfectly nice. And I looked at kind of the rap sheet for what's going on in D.C. right now, and things are still looking a lot safer than they were a year ago. What's life like on there other than rainy and cold?
Yeah, well, I was out and about in the city today over in DuPont Circle area, and I saw the National Guard still there, still having a strong presence. And so I think that probably the residents of D.C. are grateful for this, even if they will not publicly admit it, because yes, the city is safer. It feels safer. And I think that that's a good thing. And it's one of the reasons why Muriel Bowser is not necessarily taking the same approach that you see other mayors like Brandon Johnson in Chicago and obviously Zohran Mamdani in New York City, taking this adversarial tone with Donald Trump. I think she recognizes that if she keeps her mouth shut and Trump is able to restore some law and order in the city, it's actually a good thing for her prospects, because she's considering running for a fourth term. So obviously she wants to be in a position where she can appeal to voters on the crime issue.
We talked with Tim Burchett about that a little bit today, the once you get in power, wanting to stay in power. But I want to pose the transportation safety issue, because in Chicago, yesterday, a man poured flammable liquid on a woman and set her on fire during an argument aboard a Blue Line train inside the loop, like in the loop of Chicago. So the National Guard, which is in Washington, D.C.'s metro, at the transfer stops, things like that, they are making sure these kind of incidents don't happen. But Chicago, where I was told and where you were told, were these wonderful, sunny, rosy, amazing places, we're still seeing the arson, assault, attempted murder situations on public transit day after day.
Yeah, well, Tony, not only was I in DuPont Circle, but I took the metro to get there. I haven't taken the metro in years, right? And you feel safe again in Washington, D.C. to be able to do those things. I mean, public transportation is convenient. It's oftentimes, the fastest way sometimes, in a crowded city, as opposed to an Uber. And it's unfortunate that residents of these cities like Chicago are sometimes, or Charlotte, as we saw so publicly over the summer, putting their lives in jeopardy simply by boarding a train. And that has been a concern in Washington, D.C. in the past. I think it's less of an issue today as a result of the National Guard's presence. And it's unfortunate these other cities aren't taking these concerns as seriously. One of the things I saw pop up over the weekend was Cory Booker was in New Hampshire. And obviously he's somebody who's speculating about a 2028 presidential run, which is why he's visiting an early state like New Hampshire. But he was chiding his fellow Democrats for some of the language and rhetoric they've used against the police, including the defund the police language. And I thought, my goodness, if even Cory Booker is coming around on this issue, it just goes to show how badly the Democrats botched this one.
We're seeing this not only on the crime circuit, but also Democrats trying to subtly shift their language on the immigration circuit as well. And when I look at the situation regarding the National Guard, we made the point during the LA riots, criticizing the California National Guard is a really awkward stance to take, whether you're Newsom or whether you're the LA City Council or mayor, because those are Californians in the California National Guard. It's a weird kind of political suicide to go after people in your own district, in your own state. And I mean, yeah, sure, Cory Booker may have said that up in New Hampshire, but there does seem to be maybe an awareness of how much of the political suicide is taking place. Maybe not in Hakeem Jeffries' territory, but I mean, better Booker than none, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be obviously if you live in an urban area where you're elected by a 70-30 margin, you probably are not going to moderate your language. You will continue to have
Jeffries.
Yeah, exactly. And that's probably why the only way to take somebody like that out in a political race is through a primary campaign, which now Hakeem Jeffries is facing. And so you have a situation where some Democrats, I think, feel this urgency. I mean, look at Sherrod Brown in Ohio, John Ossoff in Georgia. I mean, these are Democrats who obviously can't have the left-wing rhetoric and probably are quite scared that Zohran Mamdani is now going to be the face of the party and the policies that he's advocating will become the norm for so many Democrats. But since you brought up the issue of immigration, I mean, this is one where you're seeing, ICE enforcement happening today in North Carolina. I think that the voters have been obviously very grateful to President Trump. The polls seem to indicate that they still want to see the president carry out these enforcement measures. They understand, I think, the implications that the 12 to however many more million immigrants, illegal immigrants that came into our country during Biden's 4 years are having pretty big consequences when it comes to the housing market, the employment of so many people. And yes, it's a good move on the part of President Trump to follow through on that promise he made to the American people.
So when I look at this kind of follow through on promises to the American people, we look at crime, we look at immigration. Now we pivot over to the economy, where the president has made it very clear that he is putting a lot of attention on affordability. He's working on kind of changing how he approaches the tariff game. The question that I have for you is that by the time we get to the January next continuing resolution fight, because we're all going to be back here again, this time we won't have the USDA to talk about regarding SNAP, because that's been funded for the entire year. But there will be some questions likely in the continuing resolution fight as to affordability and maybe housing subsidies, maybe talking about, again, we've talked about the mortgages a little bit. What do you see Congress doing, if anything at all, regarding using the affordability language going into the next government shutdown fight?
Well, sure. I think the best thing that Republicans can do is pass the remaining 9 appropriations bills. As you've previously reported on your show, they did get the 3 done, which includes USDA, but there's still 9 appropriations bills that they need to finish. And so then that way you won't even have to deal with a continuing resolution. You would just pass them through the normal appropriations process. I have my doubts as to whether or not they're going to do that. And so in the absence of that, you're right. They do need to figure out some of the questions related to affordability or the economic situation in our country. The good news is that because Republicans passed the One Big Beautiful Bill so early in Trump's second term, unlike at the end of the first year of his first term, those effects will start to kick in 2026. Our colleague Victor Davis Hanson has talked about this on some of his shows about how he expects there to be an economic boom in 2026, not only the investments that others are making in the United States, but also the effect of the tax bill that has already made it to the president's desk with his signature. So what can they do in the continuing resolution? Well, I think that they need to make sure that they're doing everything possible to not contribute to the inflationary problems in our country. And as I said on CNN this morning, sending people $2,000 rebate checks is not a strategy that I would endorse, because that is exactly what Joe Biden did. It's exactly what contributed to the cost of living situation that got out of control during his term. So I think President Trump needs to take a page from the free market economists and probably adopt some of those measures that would be more inclined to go in the direction of a Ronald Reagan than a Keynesian.
And I think this is one of the things that gives me a weirdly subtle optimism at this time. And I know that you and I have talked about this kind of off camera. When the president pitches out an idea and then the entire crowd reacts in the varied fashion that he's very used to as an entertainer, right. That he then does adjust strategy. There are conversations that we know of happening in the administration right now where they're not sure. Maybe we go with the rebate. Maybe we start looking at using some of this in for relief in healthcare, relief in housing. Maybe we use this in funding a government program kind of on the outside. There's a lot of options here. It's weird to see the president in a reverse catch-22, where either way that he goes is going to make a large group happy heading into the midterms. And we know that over at the Daily Signal, whether you're sending Rebecca Downs to Ohio to cover the Sherrod Brown situation, or the rest of us bouncing around the country, that we'll try to do our best to display it to the people that are tuning in.
Well, thank you, Tony. We appreciate you bringing it to the audience every night. I mean, it's incredible what you do, and we're just thankful that we have such a loyal audience relying on the Daily Signal for news. So thank you.
Wow, read it just off the cue card that I gave you. Thanks a ton. Rob Bluey, thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, Tony.
All right, let's dig into some of the other externalities for the news cycle here. First of all, just a little bit of an update. Want to bring everyone up to speed on. There appears to be a clause in House Resolution 4405 for releasing the Epstein files. Permitted withholdings would allow Attorney General Pam Bondi, or whichever Attorney General, to withhold or redact the segregable portions of records that, quote, would jeopardize an active federal investigation or ongoing prosecution, provided that such withholding is narrowly tailored and temporary. Also concerning things which might clearly be an unwarranted invasion of personal privacy, of course, things that depict sexual abuse materials of minors. So those appear to be some of the withholding portions here. We'll update you if anything like that takes place. But now that is carried away, I want to touch on Chicago very briefly. A lot of really gross news you heard me allude to in our interview with Rob Bluey. A couple of things here. So first of all, on the update of the 26-year-old woman who was set on fire on that public transportation ride in the Loop, she is currently in a hospital in critical condition. The suspect is reportedly in custody. He is a 45-year-old man and has 22 prior arrests, including arson. Of course, that's according to WSAZ. So that brings us forward to a couple of other things, again, happening in Chicago that are very, very gross at the moment. The city that I was told and you were told was perfectly safe and amazing and wonderful and never seen anything like it. Here is a crowd of children, elementary age children, mobbing a pregnant mother with sickle cell anemia, a pregnant mom, sickle cell anemia, and her child. Really disturbing. I'm not going to play the rest of the video because it is rather violent. They end up swarming, mobbing her, and throwing a lot of punches and kicks. It's rather disgusting behavior.
Jumping on her abdomen.
Say again?
When she falls to the ground, they jump on her stomach.
Very, very gross, horrific behavior. So now the police have finally, after a mob started appearing outside of an elementary school, the police essentially formed kind of a barrier around the school to keep parents who were upset and concerned away, and now have taken some of the minors away for questioning. Chicago's an absolute mess. And we're going to talk about a little bit later, because we have to bring the radio crew back one more time from commercial, why this is particularly weird. Brandon Johnson, nowhere on his lips. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. Don't go anywhere.
The Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
So with the Democrats in Congress calling for troops to be insubordinate based on their own perceptions of what they do or do not find unconstitutional, with the idea that now all of a sudden Democrats are, now we don't like it when the federal government upholds federal law. Now we don't like it when the federal government's 3-letter alphabet agencies target U.S. civilians. Again, the word citizens often left out at particular times that are perhaps more apt. Now we have Mayor Brandon Johnson of Chicago. Amid, again, arson attacks, the mobbing and beating of pregnant moms with sickle cell anemia and her children, a lot of violence that is native to Chirac. He appeared on Jennifer Welch. Again, the era of the Botoxed, angry, bitter old ladies, liberals, is in full swing. He goes on to say that really what Republicans want is a civil war because they're like the South who doesn't know that they lost or something. Here's Brandon Johnson.
So we know that the intentional attacks that are coming from the Trump administration and the extreme right in this country has very much been what I call it's an attempt to relitigate the Civil War.
Notice he says nothing about the attacks that are happening in his own city against people living in Chicago by those in Chicago. That he can directly affect, by the way. He has control of the Chicago Police Department. He can order investigations. He can order detectives. He can order precincts to focus on specific things. But he's not doing that. He's got his little beta hands in front of him, and he's complaining about Trump arresting those who should not be here in the country in the first place.
Right? They have not accepted the results that the North actually won, right?
As a reminder, the first Republican president, that would be Abraham Lincoln, that would, in fact, be the Republican core of the country winning in the Civil War. I cry about it, I guess. I'm loser.
Because if you look at all of the attacks, it's not just black cities. He's going after education, housing, transportation, good paying jobs, and healthcare. Those are literally the 5 demands of descendants of slaves post-Civil War.
Hold on a second here. Is he out here suggesting that, like, oh, well, you know, white people or Hispanic people or Asian people, they don't need anything, but boy, what the not even just black people in general, what the descendants of slaves need, which also quite a way to frame black people in the country, not by the data, but anywho, suggesting that, well, what black people really need are education, healthcare, good paying jobs, transportation from the government.
Five areas that Democrats have pushed legislation in for the past 80 years.
Also, just for kicks and giggles
here,
here,
you can only convince people for so long that you being in control will help them. The lack of results will prove themselves.
I do want to know, just for the record, you know, just out here for the boys, girls, and squirrels, did he really just admit that he thinks that black people cannot get access to these goods unless the government hands it to them in a handout? Because yikes and then some.
So it's evident that they are not, committed to actually realizing the full dream of what this country can offer.
Yeah, Brandon Johnson, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing for those being slaughtered in Chicago. But of course, God forbid federal law enforcement upholds federal law. In good news, on the good state government side of things, Governor Greg Abbott of Texas today designated the Muslim Brotherhood and the Council on American-Islamic Relations, the pact that funded Mamdani questionably legally, as foreign terrorist and transnational criminal organizations. This bans them from buying or acquiring land in Texas and authorizes the Attorney General to sue to shut them down. Excellent. Absolutely excellent. This is a good thing. Those who import and make excuses for Islamic jihadist terrorism in the United States don't need to be here. Don't care. I don't care. Those who are openly making excuses for terrorism that happens inside this country, right here, no, I don't care. Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida, is also preparing, this was on October 27th, not today, he said the Muslim Brotherhood should be designated a foreign terrorist organization. It's not clear yet whether or not he can direct the Secretary of State in Florida or the Florida Attorney General, or whether this is a piece of legislation that needs to come through the Florida state legislature. But that is the direction the Republican Party is moving in. Wonderful, excellent stuff. Just another quick thing here before we get over to the conversation with Tim Burchett, which is an excellent one. James Carville, the Democrat strategist, has come out now and just admit the only hope the Democrats have is just packing the courts as hard as they can to fight Trump, or in the future, no matter who has power. Carville.
James, President Biden didn't do that. He said, look, I'm not going to pack the Supreme Court. But you're saying a future Democratic president will?
Well, they should, because the public has lost faith in the entire branch of government. I mean, this is the lowest the Supreme Court has been rated. And if you believe, as I do, that we need faith in not just the executive or the congressional branch of government, but the Supreme Court. And it is not written anywhere in the Constitution you have to have 9. That's just a number they came up with. I think they went from 7 to 9, but I'm not sure. And I think the way to cure that very quickly is expand it to 13 and get some balance on the court. You know, the Republicans won the popular vote, I think, 2 out of the last 8 elections, and they have 2/3 of the Supreme Court justices. They have 6 out of 9. And that's absurd. It's a distortion. The Supreme Court does not serve the law. It serves the interests of the Republican Party.
Now, hang on a second here. So his argument that he is making is that, well, the current Supreme Court doesn't vote the way that I want them to. And the country has popularly elected Republicans only twice in the last several presidential elections out of the last 8. So the argument that he is making is that the Supreme Court needs to answer more in how the people vote. That's not ruling on the law. He's simply saying, man, these Supreme Court justices are ruling too originally in the Constitution. We need to get as many Supreme Court justices as we can so they start ruling with how the baristas who put Mamdani in power in New York City want them to vote. That's what we need. Producer Nick.
The people that believe like me believe that SCOTUS has a lack of trust. So let's completely restructure how that branch of government works.
This is exactly why we ended up bringing on Representative Tim Burchett today. Everyone has been beating down his door, asking about the Epstein stuff. Everyone has been beating down his door, asking about some of the government shutdown stuff. And in reality, the fight on the ground right now is the crap that James Carville is proposing. What we really need are all of these external groups that harry Congress and keep them from passing laws. We need all of these bureaucratic lobbying groups and these NGOs like CARE. We need all of these different organizations to come in and say, hang on, you can't just pass a law. Even though, again, as we saw earlier this evening, boy, when they want to pass a law, you just slap a little resolution through there and then presto hesto, it's off to the desk of Donald Trump. I mean, it's kind of swampy. It really is. It's particularly gross. So Representative Tim Burchett, we're going to bring him on. And then we've got a little bit of bonus tonus because we're really just bringing you all the good stuff this evening. Now, when they were choosing the guy to pick Tennessee's second, they accidentally got a guy who has a decent sense of humor and doesn't take himself too seriously. And it may have resulted in being exactly what the House of Representatives needs. Of course, I'm talking about Tim Burchett, the man who once said that AOC might steal your soul if you look too closely.
New dress. Y'all don't look at her too close. She'll steal your soul. All right. Have a good weekend, Cortez.
Representative Burchett, how's it going?
It's going all right. I also said she's just your friendly neighborhood Marxist.
I mean, she's my friendly neighborhood Marxist. I realize she's just about as far left as I am right. But, she actually believes that garbage. And that's why I can actually, she and I are friends. I don't agree with her on anything. When she has death threats, I pray for her safety, and I've defended her against a physical altercation once before. And so, look, I'm from Tennessee. We respect and we're crazy about ladies, and I love them in leadership. I just don't agree with her politically.
And well put at that. So you were obviously in the news over the last week because you were hammering the Democrats on the shutdown stuff. Immediately after the Clinton Foundation files dropped, we started pivoting over to the Epstein documents. You made a motion to just release everything after 3 leaked emails. Now, of course, we have Representative Stacey Plaskett discovered to have been texting with Epstein during the Donald Trump Oversight Committee situation. How are you keeping your sanity over there with all of this chaos in the House?
I would say crack cocaine, but I don't don't do drugs. But no, when I go home, I don't sleep much. It's just insomnia, really. I worry about the future of our country and future of my daughter and my wife and our little farm we got. I make skateboards at night. I go out in the barn and from about 10 to 2 or 3 in the morning, I work on skateboards and new inventions I've got. I always tell people it's cheaper than a psychiatrist. And the funny thing about it, I gave one of those to Tulsi Gabbard. And it made national news, and she put a nice tweet out about it. We've been buddies forever, and the really nice things she said about me was just unbelievable. I was overwhelmed. But so I go to ethics because I'm a capitalist. I love business. I go to ethics. I say, hey, dude, I would like to sell some of these dadgum skateboards. People are calling me all over the country wanting these things. And they said, basically, that I have to hire a lawyer and I've got a business plan and all this crap, So I said to him, so if I want to do insider stock trading, I can just, I just become a member of Congress. But if I want to sell a few skateboards, I got to hire an attorney. It's just ridiculous, brother. I mean,
I think back to Parks and Recreation, more of an Indiana Ron Swanson approach, where he once pointed out, I have some apples, I'd like to sell them. That should be it. That should be all there is to open a business in this country.
Whatever happened to, hey, I have some apples. Would you like to buy them? Yes, thank you. That's as complicated as it should be to open a business in this country.
I know that. I remember that line very well. I've rewatched that one little blurb on YouTube many times. But yeah, it's just the ridiculous nature of this thing, and a bunch of unethical people are going to stand over. It's like I used to say, military intelligence is a whole lot like congressional ethics. It really just doesn't.
Like jumbo shrimp. It's quite the oxymoron.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I went to Roger Williams, a buddy of mine from Texas. I said, Roger, he's a businessman, very respected and clean cut guy. And I said, Roger, man, we need to work on this. He said, I told him my big thing is just disclosure. Just disclose it. Because when they put these arbitrary rules on them, all they do is get an attorney. Oh, that's not me. That's my daughter's LLC. She's the welder or something. I mean, it's just bogus. And America knows it. We need to throw all those rules out and just start over and make some sense. I think America just wants to know what we're doing on the side. And I think that if, there's nothing wrong with that. I think there's nothing wrong with building a business while you're in Congress. You're just not selling your soul. You think I'm going to trade my vote for a dadgum skateboard? I mean, this is how unethical this thing is. You got staff, and its staff is really the sewer. Well, I don't call it a swamp. I always say a swamp, something pretty cool God created. It filters water. It's an ecosystem. This is a sewer. It's man-made. So you get these chairmen of these committees. Oh, I'm going to change everything. And what do? They hire the same dadgum staff. And so the lobbyists have the same contacts. They have the same control. They're going on little trips. They're going out for a little steak dinner, buying them drinks. And case in point, last night, once again, you got staff members. You have a bill that's a study bill. It starts out as maybe something strong, some anti-terrorist thing or whatever, anti-whatever group.
Something that's going to do some good, maybe.
Yeah. And it has the same title. But what happens is I have a bill to stop the Chinese from getting our genetic information. I've been working on the thing for a year to get it. And here's what happens. The lobbyist has got some staff members here, and they come to the member and say, hey, I don't think we can pass this bill right now. Oh, no, really? And you're thinking, and I'm thinking, why is this unelected bureaucrat telling an elected congressman that I can't pass the bill? And I say, well, I tell you what, why don't we do a study on it and just keep the same name, and then next year when we get the results. Now, I've been in Congress 8 years, brother. I have never seen one of these studies. I think there's a warehouse like that final scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark where all these studies go. And so I'll vote.
It's that basement in was it West Virginia or Pennsylvania where they were keeping all the retirement applications, that mine that the Doge found?
At salt mine. Yeah, it's dry or whatever. But I just think it's America is ready for us to start doing something and quit with all the nonsense. And I'm going to expose it. I've been exposing it, and I always say this: I'm not suicidal, and I don't walk near the edges of steep cliffs, and I do ride a motorcycle, and but I do practice gun safety. So if you find me with 12 bullet holes in the back of my head, I did not commit suicide.
That's good to know. It's really interesting to hear someone from the inside of Congress talk about the unelected bureaucrats who are trying to neuter every bill, water it down, reframe things, throw it into a study. Again, the study that always seems to be connected to the lobbying firm that had the issues. And then once you get the actual bill through, it doesn't change anything that particularly. We used to actually pass legislation decades and centuries ago that the law would be passed and then there would actually be a definitive change in the law. Now there are so many exceptions and I before E rules inside a bill. I mean, I've even been looking at some of the ways that the Oversight Committee operates in general, the Judiciary Committee operates. They have so many sub rules by like the recommendations that they make. They're really not useful at all. I mean, again, it really does seem like the only thing Congress is actually doing usefully is providing a platform for insider trading, as you said a minute or two ago.
Yep, 100%. But I get very frustrated with it. I called my wife last night, and I told her, I said, honey, I've kind of feel down about things, and I'm energized back today, but I just worry about our country. And people say, well, if you don't like it, get out. Well, let me tell you something, brother. If you got a congressman that likes Washington, D.C., you better get you another dadgum congressman because they're not coming home. They're on the cocktail circuit or whatever circuit they're on. At night, I don't go anywhere. And people ask me, where do you run? Where do you hang out? I hang out right here. I sleep in my office right there on that couch. My buddy gave me a cushion from from Knoxville, my best friend, for Christmas one year, this 2-ply thing. The glue didn't hold. It's 2 parts. It kind of comes apart, but I sleep with that, and I sleep in here, and I don't run around with my wife. I don't drink, and I generally don't get in bar fights unless I'm at a restaurant and walk by the bar and go into the bathroom. And but it's very frustrating. But I have to energize. I got to realize why I'm here, and I don't quit. But
I get a little bit of ribbing, teasing from some of my colleagues because they're all in D.C. and I'm here in Greenfield, Indiana on the I-70 corridor.
Good for you, dude. I break out a cold sweat every time I say, honey, it's time to go to the airport.
Oh, and I have to leave my firearms behind, and I can't stand it. So no, I feel the same way. I'm in the hotel or the whatever room I'm staying at when I go to DC, like later this week, unfortunately. And I'll sit there, and there's nothing to do. I'm glad that DC's safe again. I'm thrilled, but I don't understand what everyone sees in it. And I'm not trying to be sanctimonious. I don't know. I grew up in the Midwest. I don't really see. Wow. Walking down the city streets at night, woohoo! You've done it once, you've done it a million times.
When I hit my farm gate, when I come home, I just feel like I'm the luckiest human on the face of the earth at that point.
Well, I hear the alarm that sounds like you're
that's fine. That's nothing. That's nothing, right?
No, we're good.
We're good. That's
okay.
Another one of those bureaucratic things that just says that they've concluded their morning business or some nonsense like that.
Oh, how exciting. So I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you. So do you actually believe there's going to be any kind of an ethics commission study supreme over Representative Plaskett communicating with Epstein over the last couple of years? Or do you think that's just going to fade into a erased headline a couple of days from now?
They'll do something with it. There's too much talk about it, but it'll take forever. It'll be 6 months.
2033.
Yeah. And it's just, we were talking about something today about how we ought to be filing the paperwork today on Representative Plaskett. And everybody agreed with me, but it won't be today because you got too many butts you got to kiss. Too many staff.
Couldn't even get enough votes together to censure Ilhan Omar or Rashida Tlaib. Goodness gracious. What a mess.
Yeah. Well, that's the frustration I have with a lot of it. Leadership is about staying in power, brother. It doesn't matter who's in charge. It can be your best friend. It can be your mother. But once they get a taste of that, it's about the entourage. It's about the suburban. It's about not standing in line at a ball game. It's about somebody waiting on you. You just come sucked up into it. And I think people ought to do a study of ask them 10 questions, psychological questions, before they get in leadership, and then 10 questions after they've been there 6 months. And I suspect I just came up with that.
I like that. I don't know if you've ever, because I know I see, again, you post a lot of little reels, videos and things on social media. There's a new trend of people in kind of like fancy clothing or walking out of somewhere fancy. And it says, the caption is always, when you get that first little taste of luxury and all of a sudden you understand corruption. And, it's them kind of realizing, oh, man, it might not actually be so bad. I'm amazed at how honest people are starting to be on a lot of social media about the vices that they're willing to tolerate as long as they're the ones that are benefiting from it.
Yeah, well, it's like how I've sort of studied mobsters and leadership and, union leaders and these big operators, and they all end up in jail or dead. Very few, but they all think that they're going to be the one that survives it. The corruption and all that. And, everybody thinks I'm smarter. I'm this, I'm that. But they all end up getting caught or getting shot or going broke or being humiliated.
I mean, it's that be sure your sin will find you out from Numbers 32. You know what I'm saying?
100%.
Well, Representative Tim Burchett, I can't thank you for how much you're doing. I appreciate you. Again, having a sense of humor, but also having a real belief in what the work you're doing is important for the American people, despite how much you hate it, is a rare thing these days, and we really appreciate you. All right, so back onto the bonus tona side of things, because there are a few updates to hit you with before we close out for the evening. Number one, the reports currently that as far as a signing this evening, White House staff have not yet intimated whether or not the president is going to be signing the legislation into law, into the release this evening. He is at an event, I believe, with Ronaldo. So little good fun times over there. I mean, I'm more of a Lionel Messi guy, but what are you going to do? That said, he is also kind of announcing some increased U.S. military partnerships. And this brings us over to a little bit of Trump controversial stuff. Producer Nick, do you have a little... Was that a wave or... Excellent. So that brings us to a little bit of good old-fashioned Trump news after one more Epstein bit here. According to Representative Luna, Bill and Hillary Clinton have refused to appear for their depositions regarding Jeffrey Epstein. Now, I also happen to remember there was a time when that would get you sent to jail for a couple of years. So, how the rules do in fact change, or as Michael Scott would put it.
Well, how the turntables.
So that brings us to some of the Trump controversy today. So first and foremost, the media and the journalist crew went wild with anger, with rage, because Trump, when a reporter wouldn't stop asking about Epstein stuff after being pestered for, I kid you not, I've watched like the full stream of questions. She went on for like 45 seconds. That's a long time when you're trying to talk at someone who's not talking back to you. And finally, he looked at her and said, quiet, piggy. Here was that.
So he dictated a couple of memos to himself. You're going to find out what did he know.
By the way, I'm sorry about the audio quality, but we have yet to figure out how to invent a microphone that doesn't suck on Air Force One.
With respect to Bill Clinton, with respect to the head of Harvard, with respect to all of those people that he knew, including J.P. Morgan Chase.
Sir,
Yeah,
is
Jennifer,
there
go ahead.
something
Go ahead.
incriminating in the file, sir? Venezuela, sir.
So that's like her third, fourth time now. Like total 45 seconds jumping in, asking about Epstein, and he's like, quiet, piggy. And everyone says, oh, this is horrible. How could Trump say such a terrible, horrible thing? Oh, it's awful.
Because it's funny.
Yeah, I'm not as bothered. So a couple of things can be true at once here. Number one, I'm not going to play the 4D chess what he actually meant. However, if we play the left's game here, then you can say, well, actually, what Trump is referring to is like calling someone a greedy little piggy, like she's being greedy. That's how the left normally covers that. I'm not going to play 4D chess with that one. Instead, I'll just say this. The last week has been spent calling him bisexual Hitler Satan. I'm sorry. I just, when you spend the entire week.
With Biden, we had physical threats of violence against some reporters when they asked questions.
I'm going to throw you across the room here.
Calling somebody a piggy is not that bad.
Did he not say, and I quote, shut the hell up, end quote, to Peter Doocy like once a week? Spare me. I know we'll break out the pearls here in a little bit.
I remember him telling somebody they were going to wrap a chain around their head.
Well, good times, great oldies. We'll get to that in a little bit. Trump also spoke at the McDonald's conference, which, first of all, I didn't know there were like big McDonald's investor conferences. I wonder if they serve at the conference like spruced up McDonald's dishes. It would be better than most conference catered food. By the way, all those fancy dinners that politicians like pay to be at and things, I want you guys to know that the food at those particular events is just as bad as like at your local county shindig, where it's like canned green beans. It's awful, terrible. I don't care what hotel it is. Horrible. Anyway, here was Trump addressing the Mickey D's conference and saying to the McDonald's crew, first fry cook ever to become president of the United States. Pretty good, funny Trump here.
I'm thrilled to be here with the men and the women who are really the heart and soul of one of the greatest, most admired, and most successful companies in the history of the world, frankly. The one and only McDonald's. I've gone there a couple of times. And I'm honored to stand before you as the very first former McDonald's fry cook ever to become president of the United States.
Funny. Good stuff. Good times. So that said, there was one moment that no one really talked about that was particularly hilarious. And I do mean really, really funny. He starts talking about being a big McDonald's customer, which is true. And then he brings up RFK Jr., which is peak comedy. Here you go.
Also, one of your all-time most loyal customers. I really am. I think that's good. I'm pretty sure that's good. While other politicians fly around on campaign planes stocked with expensive catering, on Trump Force One, prior to ascending to Air Force One, which is quite a nice plane also, we served only McDonald's almost every time. On occasion, we couldn't find one, which is pretty hard to believe.
Our Elizabeth Mitchell, our White House correspondent, has in fact confirmed this. She says it's McDonald's served hot, which is impressive, by the way. It's impressive they actually keep it that warm. I guess with air fryers now that's easier, but that used to be quite the feat.
Go another route, but we really did. You fed us very well, and I even got Bobby Kennedy to eat a Big Mac. And he told me he loved it.
That's funny. Forcing RFK Jr. to eat a Big Mac is really freaking funny. So that aside, the president also said something rather politically incorrect to the Saudi prince or whatever, the leader of the Saudi Arabian dictatorial kingship monarchy today, whatever. He came over to the White House and announced $600 billion of investment into the United States and then said it will be over $1 billion. And that really impressed the president, but nothing impresses the president more than fluffing the man's ego. Because come on, it's Trump. He loves it. Here you go. And the comment afterward is just, well, it's classic Trump.
You saw that, right? And we're walking, and I asked the Crown Prince, so outside of Trump, because I blow everyone away, who was the best president for Saudi Arabia? And you could maybe, it's an interesting answer. I don't know.
Roosevelt, who started it, which is a Democrat, and Reagan, he's one of the historical presidents that have close ties with Saudi Arabia. But we've worked with all presidents.
Does Trump blow them all away?
No, it's another league, Mr. President.
And Trump doesn't give a fist pump. I grabbed that hand. I don't give a hell where that hand's been. I grabbed that hand.
So this was really funny for a couple of reasons. So obviously the throwing a punch at Biden is great. He and the prince did spend a considerable amount of time walking down President Trump's little hall of presidents that the framed photos of presidents. And they did stand there laughing for like 20 or 30 seconds at the Biden auto pen photo, which is really good. But the reason that the left hand, I don't care where that hand has been joke is funny, is that there has been a long kind of stereotype with Middle Eastern nations, especially with some of the more tribal communities, that they wipe their butt with their left hand instead of using toilet paper. And there's a question, is like, was Trump making that joke here? He's made jokes like that in the past, meaning that like Trump would likely know the joke. With the Saudi crown prince right there, that's really freaking funny. If that's what he meant by that's really freaking funny. It could be just, I'll shake his hand. I don't care whose hand it is, whatever.
I think it's in reference to the tradition of bumping fists due to COVID that was really prevalent under Biden.
Good point as well. It could be either one. Either way, really, really funny stuff. Last but not least, just, because I since we're talking about, the Miss Piggy in the comments and whatever and all that, this was sent over to us. I don't know who Leslie Jones is. I have no idea who Leslie Jones is. On the Kelly Clarkson show. I didn't know Kelly Clarkson had a show. But a lot of outrage. And it's this entitled attitude that is rather prevalent in that whole Jennifer Welch Botox crew of, I'm so wonderful, men should want to love me and date me. I don't need to change anything about me. You all should have to change because I'm so wonderful and precious and amazing. And it got a little heated today. Here you go.
I'm sick of men telling me, oh, well, you hardcore. Yes, I am.
Can you handle it?
Oh, well, what you bringing to the table? I am the table.
You hear all the women that go, yes, yay, you're so brave. And she looks aggressive. That's some nostril flaring world record stuff right there. You could drive a truck through one of those nostrils.
Understand why you wouldn't want a woman like me. I am successful. I'm rich. I can fight.
I know the answer. The answer is that having someone who seems pleasant to be around is worth a lot more than being successful, super money person who knows how to fight. Just, throwing it out there. There have been some political scandals this week involving relations with various individuals. And I'd like to throw out there that, choosing a partner, maybe going after the person with the success and the title and the money and the whatever. If you get home at the evening and they yell at you because you didn't call her royal tableness, I'm just saying, I personally, I'm just out here saying maybe acting lovely, catch a little more flies with honey than you might with vinegar in this case. Producer Nick.
Did you notice that she tried to snap her fingers but couldn't because of her large acrylic nails?
No, I didn't. But I don't really have a joke for that. I didn't notice that. Don't try to snap if you've got large acrylic. Sounds like a great way for a puncture wound. I don't know. I'm not going to get into that. I know that large, long nails are quite exciting fashion. It's not for me. I know that shocks you. Folks, it's been real. It's been fun. I'll answer just a couple of mail time questions because I promised before we close out this evening. So one question that I got in the comments that I think is good, it's from a guy named Regular Jeff regarding the Democrat sedition encouragement video earlier, and said, when did we lose treason is treason? Then does everyone on the chat know the treason law was the follow-up. I'm here to answer that question. The reason I did not bring up the charge of treason when talking about the Democrat congressional video of calling, troops to be insubordinate. That's not technically the definition of treason. There's a colloquial definition of treason in which we say it's betraying your country. Anytime you betray the country itself, that's treason. The legal definition of treason is you are betraying the country with the direct interest of another country at heart. As in, you are sabotaging the United States. You are doing something that is loyal directly to Beijing, to Moscow, to London, etc. That would be treason. Sedition is when you encourage or facilitate rebellion against your own government. You say, does it matter? Well, it kind of depends. Certain colloquial phrases, we suggest that a person maybe who is guilty of manslaughter, that it's murder, even though the legal definition of murder is broken down into degrees and then manslaughter and various kinds of stuff. That's kind of the reason, even though, another colloquial would be defamation, even though sometimes it's libel or slander and not the legal definition for defamation. There's your answer to that one. Next from Dell. What do you think about a socialist primarying Speaker Jeffries? Yes, this is Che Ose, I think. I made a pun out of his name this morning. I know you're not surprised about this. The Democrats have decided that because Mamdani won, that now is the time to run all of the young multi-ethnic immigrant socialists, to go out there and run with this. I will remind you that the guy from the Captain Phillips movie, the Somalian that ran for mayor in Minnesota, whatever his name was.
Omar Fateh.
Omar Fateh, yeah, sure.
He is not the mayor now.
Whatever, yeah. Look at me. I'm the loser of that race now. So this particular aspiring young lad, he didn't win. In fact, Jacob, the beta male fry mayor of Minneapolis, is retaining.
Cries a lot.
Yeah, cries a lot at awkward times. Probably an actor for a Sarah McLachlan commercial. Anyway, Yeah.
I just imagine him kneeling in front of George Floyd's mural there.
Yeah, a lot of foot kissers going on. Oh, Bruce Rice over on the chat sent 10 Daily Signal channel memberships to people. That was very, very kind of people. That was very, very kind of you. Thank you. So that question, I think they might try to primary him. Whether or not he wins in that primary is a good guess. Right now, you have a lot of young women on the left who know nothing at all about politics. By the way, the answer to this, someone has recently turned me towards watching the Whatever podcast, which has been very painful. I'm going to let you on a little secret. I really don't like podcasts. I don't like them. I've now had 2-3 podcasts. I don't care for them. I listen to a couple here and there when I have to. Most of the things I watch, I'm a show watching kind of guy. Producer Nick, he absorbs podcasts through osmosis.
Over 80,000 hours viewed.
You poor man. For me personally, I'm of the opinion that I don't know. I just don't really care as much for podcasting, but on the Whatever podcast, they often have a lot of young ladies who are kind of the representing influencer group of the young Generation Z female left. And not even being able to name what continent you are on or what the 2 American continent names are, that's a struggle and a half. So will that crew maybe push through and elect whoever runs up against this Osei guy against Akeem? Maybe. I don't know. All I can tell you right now is that Akeem is about as inspiring as toe fungus, and the man speaks like William Shatner made out with Barack Obama. So, yippee, maybe that was good enough 7-8 years ago. It isn't good enough now. Nextly, yeah, I'm going to use that word, from Ebola. He says, Tony, what is going on in Indiana with the failure to redistrict? That's a great question, and I'll answer it very briefly. There are Republicans that are in power in Republican majority states who don't do anything. They don't do anything useful. They have power. And I don't think that, I don't think it's maybe just as much the corruption as it's laziness. They don't have to do anything. They don't care. And right now on all sides of the aisle in Indiana, even though I broadcast out of Indiana, even though the first station I'm on is WIBC in Indianapolis before the other stations get a hold of it. I don't usually talk a lot about Indiana politics on the show. Reason number one is because the other show hosts on the station do cover Indiana politics a lot. I think that Hoosiers, along with a lot of other people, might like a Hoosiers common sense take on national junk. Number two, I think that state and local politics, everyone in my state is kind of ridiculous. And I say that because on the populist side of the aisle, on the establishment side of the aisle, the libertarian Republicans, even a lot of the traditional conservatives, no one really knows what they're doing. We had an establishment control of the party about a decade ago, and then the populists started to take over, and I issued a warning. I said, if populists are going to run to take over the state government, they better know what they're doing to run the position. Now we have a lot of populists in power who don't know what the positions are to do. Our Secretary of State is a great example of that. Diego Morales has no idea how to run the job. He has no idea what he's doing. It's just the truth. We have just a lot of useless shenanigans. So in the Senate, they have to approve the redistricting effort. But our state senators, as back when I was an education policy advisor, found out, they do this nonpartisan crap where they like to pretend they're like, I'm a man of the people. And so they'll have like a teachers union group call in, and they will take that just as seriously, that kind of lobbying just as seriously, as if you, me, or Dupree were to call in and say, hey, I want you to redistrict the state. Because right now it's currently districted along what some would consider some racial lines. And the district that I'm in is gerrymandered like an awkward C backwards in order for Indianapolis to have its own little special segregated district so that Representative Andre Carson gets to retain power. So the short answer for the reason that Republicans in Indiana are not redistricting is because they don't have cojones. They don't have the will to do it. And you have a bunch of people who are more than happy to let the left get out there and play any game they want and ram power down whoever's throat they want. And then when it's Republicans' turn to wield the bat, all of a sudden they're saying, oh no, don't play by the rules of the game. You have to be really nice and get stepped on. So there's your short answer. Laziness and a weird desire to be stepped on. That's the problem with the Republican Party here in my home state. That's also, that little lecture is why I don't usually get invited to the fancy Republican balls and dinners and soirees in the state. On the national level, yeah. But that's also because at the national level, often we make fun of individuals in the Indiana Republican Party leadership who took time to have a diversity committee as though being a black Republican somehow made you more special than any other color of Republican. Which is the same kind of really stupid Hathaway strategy, Chicago-style politics that loses elections. So hopefully that's a good answer to your question. It's been a fun time. It's been a good hoot. We've had some laughs. We've had some news. So hope you have an excellent evening. Tomorrow evening, I'll be coming to you from our nation's sewer capital, Washington, D.C. This is the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC. Y'all, take care.